My name is Jayson Flint. I started an auto brokerage in 2023, and I've been running that service since that time, about 18 months. It's now December of 2024. We're going into 2025, and I may lose my business. Did I quit my full-time job too early? And I'm hoping that this conversation can be used to help other people and also maybe, hopefully, to be a record of what I've been doing. I didn't want to record all this stuff before. And that's just no reason. I've been on the internet and I've done videos many a time, but for some reason, I just didn't know how to record this. And I didn't know how to record my daily of what I do. And so I just decided not to. And maybe that was my doing. I should have been doing this from day one. I'm here hopefully to help somebody and also to tell you my story. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I was doing beforehand. So I had been working for a insurance company out of Chicago for about 9 years. And that company had paid me well and had done well. I won't say paid me well, but they had done well. I had been there for a while, started in one position, I moved to another position, and I had held that one for the past 7 years. And everything was going well up to a certain point. So in 2020, I had a divorce happen. And after that, I moved back to Georgia from Florida. And so I'm in Georgia. I'm with my daughter and I'm taking care of her. And so, things are kind of hard, but I'm doing it. We're doing it nonetheless. And so that job held me through. And I was doing that job, very well, but it was mundane. So the job itself was, I was a processor. So it was paperwork and it was just processing paperwork over and over and over and over. And that process took time and it took a lot of mental because you had to look for errors and make sure you didn't make errors. And so I had been doing that for some time. So I tried to look internally for a couple of things to see if I could find something else. But again, as I started this auto brokerage with a conversation with a good friend of mine, I said, all right, I'm going to make this my full time and I'm going to move out of this into that full time. So the context of the previous job was just a mundane job that had become to the point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. And, I was kind of getting very bored with it, still working it, still doing well, but I was getting to that point where I was going to start to kind of fade off because my side thing, I'm trying to put my efforts into that because you have something that, you have to do, which is the daytime job that pays the bills, right? But then you also have another portion of what you want to do because you love it. And that's where I didn't know how to trade that time properly. And I made some huge mistakes. That's pretty much where I was at that moment. But I didn't want to stay in the corporate side because, that was just going to continue to be the same thing over and over. And hindsight 2020, I probably should have looked at some things that I could have done. Maybe took some time off, maybe, stress-related time off, things of that nature. But at the time, I just didn't know what to do. So after an actual, I think it was a holiday weekend, and we came back, and that Monday, I believe I worked a full day. And then when Tuesday came, in my head, I just said, this is it. I just said, this is it. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I called my supervisor. I advised her, hey, this just isn't working for me. I'm at this point. She didn't go into anything. She didn't ask me any questions. I truly didn't know what to do. I just was done. And so she said, well, if you're leaving, you have to give me some notification that you're leaving. And so I wrote a letter, gave it to her, and I logged off, and I was done. Now, immediately after that, I can't lie, I was a little afraid, but also I was relieved. I was relieved because I had been doing this for a while. I knew that it wasn't going to where I wanted to go. I didn't want to do this for the next 5, 10, 15 years. And so I decided at that moment that was it for me. So with that being said, there's a part of that I didn't really want to tell, but I felt like if I don't tell you what happened, then it won't make sense. So when I was in 2020 with my ex-wife in Florida, and we were going through divorce, there were bills that I had to stop paying, right? Because two incomes is different from one income. And so I stopped paying certain bills. Well, here comes 2023. I'm working my job. I don't know anything about a garnishment being formed against me. And I got my check one weekend. This is right before I quit. I probably quit after about 3 or 4 weeks because what happened was I got the garnishment. Well, first I checked the paycheck. It was low. So I was like, maybe something happened on, my clock out, anything. And I looked and nothing was wrong, but I saw garnishment. And then that moment, I was like, oh, you know what? I was like, this can't be right. Something's happened. So I start searching. I contact ADP. ADP gets the information, not my employer. My employer got the information that they formed the garnishment or wanted to. Then it went to ADP. ADP does it because that's who does the payments. So I found out who it was. I called the people and I talked to this lady. And granted, I'm talking to the lady and I just say, hey, I understand that in Georgia, I believe you can take 30% of somebody's income. And I'm like, I understand that. Don't get me wrong. I understand it. But is there any way we can drop this down? I'll pay you, but I can't live if you're taking this kind of money out of me, And the next thing I know, she says, we don't do that. She didn't say we can't do that. She said we don't do that. So that right there meant one thing to me, that they didn't give two what about me. And obviously, it's not their debt. They're just collecting it for somebody else. But in that moment, it hit me in the face like, I can't live and do this at the same time. And I'm still struggling, stressing about what I'm doing already. And this is killing the amount of money that I have already. And I'm floating a business, meaning I'm using the money from the full time to make the business run. At the same time, I got a life that I have expenses for. So business expenses, personal expenses, all together, wrapped together. I'm now losing, 30% of my income. And in that moment, I was just like, I can't continue this. I got to make a decision. Now, I didn't know what to do totally. And hindsight 2020, I probably should have really looked at some other things to try and figure out how I could fix it or at least diminish it some. But I didn't know what to do at the time. So in that moment, that's what led me to quit the job. So it was the stress of the job, the mundane stress of the job, which sounds weird, but it was. On top of that, the garnishment that was pulling 30% of my full-time income away from me. And I'm pushing money into the business to keep it going. And I'm trying to get, and I'm trying to keep my personal money going. So that's the reason why the whole thing happened. And my expectation at that moment was, all right, I just, you're on the fence. You're either going to do the work of the old, or you're going to do the new thing you're trying to do that's going to get you to where you're trying to go. But you can't sit in the middle of that fence. You got to jump over the fence, or some people say S, or get off the pot. You can fill in the S, sugar, honey, iced tea. So that's where I was. And in that moment, there was nothing else I thought I could do. So I did what I thought was right. Immediately after I left the full-time job, my stress levels dropped. And I felt like the ocean that was rising above my head kind of subsided. And it felt good for a moment. And I was just doing my normal everyday thing with the business. But the thing I didn't have was money. I didn't have money. So the capital that I had, I didn't have enough to put in to buy what I needed to buy, to move the cars, to make the money, to get on top of. So that was my biggest challenge, was trying to get the money to be able to buy the cars. And I was able to keep the business going, but, and I thought I would be able to buy cars sooner, but it turned out that I couldn't. And so the obstacle for me at that point was, well, when am I going to get to the point to have the money to be able to buy the cars, to be able to sell the cars, to be able to make the money, to be able to grow the business? It wasn't, I will say, it wasn't the smartest decision, because I was torn between what I had to do and what I love to do. And I left what I had to do for what I love to do, but what I love to do didn't make money. At that moment, it didn't make money. It's still not making money. That's the challenge that I have. And now I'm literally going into 2025, and I'm literally down in my bank account, down. I got a car that I'm trying to sell right now, but you have regulations on you and things you can do and things you can't do when you sell. So that's another thing. But at any rate, those were the challenges. And, before I quit, I just had this idea that I cannot continue down this path and mentally keep going this road. So essentially what I learned is, if you are wanting to start a business, or you already have started a business on the side, but you have a full-time job that you have, and you've been working that diligently and doing whatever you got to do to make that work, the thing is that you are going to have to make a decision, but it's based around the facts, not what you love, not what you hate, or what you don't want to do anymore. It's about the facts, and the facts are in the middle, and they stare you in the face. It's just sometimes you don't want to look at it. The fact is that I should not have left. I should have only left based on the fact that if I had made 3 months worth of my daytime income, or 6 months is a better number, 6 months of consistently winning at selling cars, making profit over what I was making every day, that's what I needed to do. And that would have put me on a better pedestal, so that I wouldn't potentially be losing this business. And the stuff behind me is all regulation. So you got to pay for all these different things, insurance and bonds and all this stuff that you got to pay for. And right now I'm down on the last of what I have, which is really not much. So the experience is that I should have taken that number, reached 6 months worth of income. And if on the 5th month, if I didn't reach that number, I needed to start over and do 6 months of full-time income coming from selling cars. So that is the experience of what I went through. And my advice off of that is based off of having the numbers, that the number of what you love outweighs the number of what you make at your normal full-time. And you've got 6 months of that. Then you can leave. Nobody does it the way that I did it. And I understand why, because that's part of the failure of this kind of thing, is that you decided what you didn't love, and you decided what you loved was better, but it doesn't sustain you. So that's the big issue that I had. And my hope, again, is that this video goes to people, or maybe people send it to other people who are going through this, or deciding right now to do something like this. And I want to caution you, don't do it. Don't do it until you get this number good. Then you can do it. Ultimately, was it the right choice for me to do this? No, it wasn't the right choice. I felt like I didn't have any other choice. And I probably could have spoke to my HR at the company. I had called somebody, and they either didn't call me back or didn't give me a call back early enough. And I was stressing, and everything that was hitting me, I didn't know what to do. But I thought, I'm going to do this because this is going to build me the money. And it didn't. It didn't. So, my business may run dry, and I may have to close up shop. And from there, I don't know what's going to happen. I just, my thing is that it wasn't the right choice for me to do it that way. I encourage anybody who hears this video, if you know somebody who's looking to leave or wanting to leave, send them a video like this, because this is the kind of thing that comes from a real person, somebody who was fed up, ready to move on, got pushed into it because of what was happening with the whole garnishment thing. And instead of giving it a moment, stopping, assessing what was going on and figuring out how to move, he just cut it off. And that's not the way that you want to do it. Now, I do live by myself, or at least I'm by myself. So I don't have a whole bunch of stuff that's tied to me. Because if I did, I would tell you I wouldn't have did any of that. Because my biggest thing was always trying to make sure that I had the home front taken care of for what I needed to do. I never left anything where I didn't have that, money coming in. But that's my story. If you have a story that resonates with you, that you remember, or maybe that you were in the same situation trying to do the same kind of thing, and it either failed or it worked, let me know. I do know one thing. When you go from working a 9 to 5 and, getting a constant check every 2 weeks to now everything is on you, boy, when people call you, I heard these stories, and I just want to say this, then I'm going to let you go. I heard these stories where people say, if it ain't about money, then don't call me. That's exactly how you feel when people call you and ask you, do you still have that car? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Man, look, you know what I got going on. Do you want to buy it? Or, and I'm at that point where it's like I made a bad decision, and now I don't want to keep making bad decisions. My hope is that this helps somebody, and my hope is that, it resonates with other people. So if you have any thoughts or comments, definitely leave them. And don't forget to follow and like this video. I appreciate it. This is my first one, but I'm going to continue to do the videos, and we'll see where it goes from there.